So I just got back from seeing Black Panther, and I have to say that was a really fun movie. It didn't blow me out of the water. I think the problem I had going into this movie was I didn't expect anything I hadn't already seen before. The prodigal son returns to resume his position as king, or to assume his position as king. The hidden city, the secret society, the outsider coming in to change everything. There was nothing bad about this movie that I can think of without seeing it a second time, which I really don't plan to do until the home release. So let's just sort of dive into what we liked and didn't like about this movie with restraints on spoilers, for whatnot. So what I didn't like about this film was Black Panther, and by that I mean not T'Challa. T'Challa was actually really great. What I didn't like was anytime the Black Panther suit is on, it then becomes an action movie. Like the only time I actually like the Black Panther suit is when we see the new one for the first time and then the final fight at the end. And that was pretty much it. Because once that suit's on, you don't have to worry about him. It's like, oh, hey, he's got the suit on. Yeah. Well, there goes the tension. There goes the tension. Like the real meat of this movie, I think, is anytime that suit is not on. Anytime T'Challa, it just has to be T'Challa and not Black Panther, I think, is where the movie really shines. There's a chase scene, and you've seen in the trailers. The chase scene's really boring, but then I think just about every chase scene is boring because this chase scene happens pretty early in the movie, and the problem with chase scenes is that you never really feel anything important is going to happen the more you see it. I don't think there'll ever be a chase scene as great as like the one in Blues Brothers, where we're just driving a car and it's just the most amazing thing ever. Or the chase scene, let's say, from The Incredibles. Like those chase scenes were really fun. Or even any chase scene involving Jackie Chan is usually just great by default. But by this point, you've seen one chase scene, you've seen them all. Another thing I didn't like was, I think that was kind of it. Like the lack of Wakanda. Actually, like we're in Wakanda a lot. Like 95%, actually 95 to like 97% of this movie is in Wakanda. I don't feel like we really see Wakanda, which is a bit weird because this is something. The next step is going to be something I didn't like about this movie was that it didn't feel that we had an argument presented about what Wakanda should be doing with itself. What should Wakanda's future be? Should we go out there? Should we help? Or should we just resume hiding from the rest of the world? And this was something that was brought up at Atlantis Lost Empire by Kita. We should be out there. We should be trying to thrive, not just survive. That's kind of it. We're not thriving, we're surviving, and we're barely doing that. Here, that question is brought up, particularly by Shuri. Shuri brings it up, and Wakabi brings it up, and it's all fun. It's all an interesting question, but there's never really an answer. And on the other end is Killmonger on that end of the question. And I never feel like the question has an answer, but we get an answer that I don't feel is properly brought up. If anything, the actions of this movie should tell you that you shouldn't. But I think that's up for discussion. I think the idea of what Wakanda should be doing becomes more of a moral answer as opposed to the smart answer. Because, real quick, and this isn't a spoiler, but the reason Wakanda thrives is because it's strictly isolationist. It cuts itself off from the rest of the world, and it strictly regulates its trade and interactions with the rest of the world. This is what happens when you have a really cool technology, a really cool energy source, you're able to do with whatever you want, and are then able to control what happens by that point. Wakanda would not be what it was, or what it is, if it bothered to open its gates at any time. This is brought up, but they never really bring up the fact that this is why they are the way they are. This is why they have everything they have, is because they closely guard themselves. And I feel like that's sort of a mistake on this movie's part, that it never addresses that argument. Maybe that'll be in Black Panther 2, the second one, because I would go see the sequel to this movie. This movie did not bore me, but it didn't surprise me, and that's on me. That is totally on me. What I did like about this movie was everyone in this movie. All right, I personally do not like Killmonger as a character, or rather, I don't like Killmonger not as he's acted or as he's portrayed, but I just don't like the character. He's a fun antagonist. He's not the physical threat I think he tries to come off. He's the ideal threat. He's the Joker character in that he stands in direct opposition to what our protagonist believes and how they think and function. That's really great. I love Shuri's character. I don't usually like younger sibling characters. Say what you will about what that says about my own personal life and my own siblings, but whatever. She was fun. 16-year-old geniuses do not usually work. They usually tend to be a bit too smart. It's like, okay, so why aren't you in charge? Why aren't you in charge? Valeria in the Fantastic Four, she's 3 years old and she's like 2 days away from being smarter than her dad, has the downside or the upside to her character being 3 years old and still has an almost sort of 3-year-old mentality. Like, she knows she's smart, but she's still a kid, and that works. And I think with Shuri, they got that close, especially because whenever Shuri and T'Challa are together, you forget that he's the Black Panther and she's a princess, and they're just siblings, and it's fun. That's something I like. When T'Challa is with the royal family, when he's with his friend Wakabi, or when he's interacting with Okoye, there's this great sense of these people know each other. Like, this isn't just, okay, I'm your general. Like, nah. I am the leader of your special forces. Okay, I've been with you for a while, and this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. We're going to act like we've known each other for a long time. That works. It's sort of like in Game of Thrones, Sir Barristan talks about his time with Rhaegar, and the story he tells about we used to play. I used to watch Rhaegar when he would play harp for the townspeople, and he'd get some coin, and he'd give it to the poor, and then sometimes we'd go get a drink. That's a fun moment that shows you a lot about Sir Barristan's relationship with Rhaegar and their friendship. For what it's worth, because Rhaegar's messed up. Rhaegar's messed up. Rhaegar's messed up. Everything about that's messed up. But whatever. I really didn't know what to expect from Martin Freeman, but he was the one I was spending the most attention on because Martin Freeman's just a really fun actor, and I love when British people try to sound American. It always feels like every attempt is just a giant middle finger to Dick Van Dyke's Cockney accent. Just brilliant. It's fun all the time. The British actors will replace us all the time. It's true. I liked Wakanda. Like, I know it's weird because I said I didn't like Wakanda before, but what I saw of Wakanda was fun. The people, the elders, like the council, like T'Challa's council is just fun. Like, there's nothing specific about, like, a lot of them don't have a lot of great dialogue moments, but you sort of get the idea that that not only do they have a lot of power, but they're each here because they're trusted, they're advised, and they each sort of have their own ideas and philosophies on how things go. Like, there's a little bit of a spoiler here. There's a scene when T'Challa walks up to see Shuri, and he mentions that he's wearing open-toed sandals. Essentially, because he's going old school. And she says, I bet the elders really appreciated that. So the idea you have to placate the elders a bit. I do like the argument or the issue being presented as to what should Wakanda do. What is Wakanda's obligation? What is Wakanda's responsibility? What will Wakanda's future be? Because I think that's a very important question. As I said before, a big point of why Wakanda is the way it is because it guards itself. It hides itself off. A good example is Gallifrey. In Doctor Who, Gallifrey hides itself from the rest of the universe. Not just now, but kind of always. Like humans, non-Gallifreyans are only allowed on Gallifrey under the strictest of circumstances. Usually they're about to die, or the Doctor dropped Ace off here, dropped Leela off here, and we've got nothing else to do with them, so let's just put them to work. And that's it for the most part when it comes to that. And no one ever says, like, well, you shouldn't do that. Like, well, why shouldn't we? Look what we've accomplished. There's nothing they can really give us. It's kind of it. And there's this implied sense of nationalism, this sense of pride in Wakandan, being Wakandan, that I don't think is ever really brought up forward in the movie. And again, maybe that'll be the sequel. I would totally be up for a sequel. If there had to be one other thing I liked. It wasn't the music. And the music wasn't bad, but nothing about it jumped up at me. The special effects were, well, I don't really care about special effects from a live-action Disney film. It's either going to look really cheesy or really good, and look really cheesy by Disney standards, which means we cut some corners that we didn't need to cut. But whatever. M'Baku, the warrior we're going to see here, he's reminiscent of Christopher Priest's Black Panther run with the character. What was his name? What was his name? What was his name? The Man Ape. But I think they wanted to avoid calling him Man Ape. But whatever. The action scenes were really good, especially when Okoye is there. Okoye is just love that woman, love that woman. Just every time she's on screen, I'm like she's either gonna say something witty, make a really great smirk, or she's gonna kill something. Those are her three modes. Love them. Love all three of those modes. Standout character I would say would be Wakabi. I just liked Wakabi. He I liked Wakabi up until a certain point. There's a sort of really weird moment when Killmonger shows up that sort of changes his character, and I don't think he realized that it's had an effect on him. He doesn't realize what has happened because of it. And honestly, that's kind of it. Do I recommend you see this movie? Oh yeah, you should really go see it. I think it's a fun experience. If you're looking for your first Marvel movie, I would probably still recommend this. But if you wanted a great superhero movie in terms of like Iron Man or Captain America, I would say probably not. But if you look for something a bit more deep and something more along the lines of Winter Soldier, this isn't Winter Soldier level complex, but it does propose a really interesting question that maybe it's not supposed to have an obvious answer, or rather the answer is not supposed to be given up. One more thing I didn't like about this movie was oh was this sort of idea that T'Challa T'Challa is able to blame a lot of what's going on his ancestors, on his father, and so on and so forth. This was an issue I had with Legend of Korra when Korra suggests Avatar 1 was wrong for closing the spirit portal. It's like, well, no, he did the best he could, and if you see this movie, you will probably more than likely agree with T'Challa. But I think uh, the stance he takes is a bit too broad and sort of speaks to how complex some issues can be. But that's it for the most part. Again, you should really see this movie. It's fun. It probably ended up being one of my favorite superhero movies, which I think I should do a list on that at some point. But that'll have to come later. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie. Feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing out. May your fandom serve you well.